No one is screaming, no one is resisting. And that's exactly why this painting is terrifying. At first glance, this painting looks like a wedding ceremony, but the longer we look, the less it feels like a wedding. There is no joy in it, no excitement, no gaze that says, I chose this. So first, we have to ask, what exactly are we seeing? A Russian Orthodox church, a very young girl in a white dress, direct light falling on her face. Beside her stands a much older man wearing medals and formal attire. A priest is conducting the ceremony. Several men stand behind them. Everything appears calm, but it is a heavy kind of calm, like the silence before a confession. Before continuing the analysis, let me briefly speak about the painter. Vasily Pukirev was a Russian realist. He was not interested in myths or legends. He was interested in the bitter truths of everyday life. And this painting is precisely one of those truths. In 19th century Russia, marriages between very young girls and much older wealthy men were common, not out of love, but out of expediency. Financial security, social mobility, family approval, but for the girl, it usually meant the end of choice. Now let's look more closely. The bride is very young. Her skin is almost colorless. Her eyes are lowered. Her hand extends forward, but not with eagerness. It looks more like a hand that has accepted, not chosen. Her floral crown is not blooming. These details are not accidental. She resembles an angel, but an angel who will never be allowed to fly. The light falls directly on her, like a sacrifice placed upon an altar. The groom, in contrast, is old, heavy, rigid. On his chest we see the Order of Saint Vladimir, a symbol of social status, power, and respect. He looks down at the bride, not with tenderness, but with a sense of ownership. He is not merely a man, he is the system. And then there's the man standing on the right. Many believe this figure is the painter himself. Some say he was in love with the girl, but she was forced to marry the older man. Even if that story is not fully documented, his presence in the composition is striking. His gaze is sorrowful. His hands are clasped together, like a witness who knows he can do nothing. Even I can feel the weight of the atmosphere that dominates this work. So here is an important question. Why did this painting become significant? When it was exhibited in 1862, it caused a scandal because people recognized themselves in it. They saw how unequal that so-called normal custom truly was. This work became one of the earliest serious visual critiques of class-based marriage in Russia. What makes it so devastating? No one is shouting. There's no visible violence, no scream. Everything is official, religious, legal. And that is precisely what makes it so painful. Sometimes injustice does not happen loudly. Sometimes it happens under candlelight in a white dress. If I want to put it simply, this painting is not about love. It is about the absence of choice, about a girl standing at the center of the scene, yet holding the least power, and about a society that watches and says nothing. And perhaps that is why, more than 150 years later, when you look at the bride's face, you feel something familiar, because this is not just a historical story, it is a human condition. As this episode comes to an end, I want to look at the painting a little more professionally and conclude this final chapter of women romanticism and tragedy in the strongest way possible. Let's examine the composition and the light. Direct light falls on the bride. She is the brightest point in the image, like a sacrificial figure placed upon an altar. The groom, though standing at the center, is immersed in colder light. He appears more physical, heavier, older. The scene takes place in a church. a sacred space meant to sanctify union. Yet here, that very sanctity becomes a tool that legitimizes inequality. I have only recently begun creating these episodes. I feel immense excitement, and I have thousands of ideas already in progress and ready to be released soon. Your subscription truly gives me more motivation. To conclude, The Unequal Marriage is not a depiction of a ceremony. It is a portrait of legalized submission. Pukirev shows us that injustice does not always take place on a battlefield. Sometimes it happens in a church beneath candlelight in a white dress. This work remains contemporary because it asks a fundamental question. When a social structure declares something official, does that automatically make it just?